For years, low-carbohydrate diets have been widely promoted as one of the most effective strategies for losing weight and improving metabolic health. Millions of people around the world began cutting foods like bread, pasta, rice, and sugar from their diets, believing that reducing carbohydrates was the key to protecting their bodies. And in many situations, the results appeared impressive. People often lost weight quickly, blood sugar levels improved, insulin sensitivity increased. For individuals struggling with obesity, metabolic syndrome, or type 2 diabetes, reducing carbohydrate intake sometimes produced dramatic short-term improvements. Because of these early results, low-carbohydrate diets quickly became one of the most popular nutritional strategies in the world. But over the past several years, researchers have begun noticing something unexpected. A growing number of studies are raising an uncomfortable question. What if extremely low-carbohydrate diets could have unintended effects on cardiovascular health? Not because of calories, not because of weight loss, but because of how the body adapts internally when the balance of nutrients changes dramatically. To understand why scientists are asking this question, we first need to understand how the body normally produces energy. Carbohydrates are one of the body's primary sources of fuel. When we eat foods containing carbohydrates, they are broken down into glucose. This glucose enters the bloodstream and provides energy for cells throughout the body. As blood glucose levels rise, the pancreas releases insulin. Insulin acts like a signal that allows cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream and use it for energy. This system helps maintain stable blood sugar levels and ensures that cells receive the fuel they need to function. However, when carbohydrate intake is significantly reduced, this entire metabolic process begins to shift. With fewer carbohydrates entering the body, blood glucose levels tend to remain lower, and insulin production decreases. As insulin levels drop, the body begins searching for alternative fuel sources. One of the main alternatives is stored fat. Instead of relying primarily on glucose, the body increases the breakdown of fatty acids. These fatty acids can then be used to generate energy for muscles and other tissues. This shift toward fat metabolism is one of the main reasons many people experience rapid weight loss during the early stages of a low-carbohydrate diet. But metabolism is a complex system with many interconnected processes. When the body begins relying heavily on fat for fuel, other metabolic pathways also begin to change. And one of those changes involves how cholesterol moves through the bloodstream. Cholesterol does not circulate freely in blood. Instead, it travels inside particles known as lipoproteins. These particles act as transport vehicles that carry cholesterol and fats to different parts of the body. One of the most well-known lipoproteins is LDL, or low-density lipoprotein. LDL is often referred to as bad cholesterol, but the term can be misleading. Cholesterol itself is not inherently harmful. In fact, it plays an essential role in building cell membranes, producing hormones, and supporting many biological functions. The problem occurs when LDL particles become too abundant in the bloodstream. When LDL levels remain elevated over long periods of time, these particles can begin interacting with the inner lining of arteries. The inside surface of an artery is covered by a delicate layer of cells known as the endothelium. Under healthy conditions, this layer helps regulate blood flow and prevents harmful substances from entering the artery wall. However, LDL particles can sometimes slip beneath this protective barrier. Once trapped within the arterial wall, LDL particles may undergo chemical changes. One of the most important of these changes is oxidation. Oxidized LDL particles can trigger an immune response. White blood cells move into the artery wall in an attempt to remove these damaged particles. Over time, these immune cells absorb cholesterol and transform into structures called foam cells. As foam cells accumulate, they begin forming fatty streaks along the inner wall of the artery. These fatty streaks represent the earliest stage of atherosclerosis, the gradual buildup of plaque inside arteries. As plaques continue to grow, they begin narrowing the artery and restricting blood flow. But the most dangerous moment occurs when a plaque becomes unstable. If the outer surface of a plaque ruptures, the body immediately forms a blood clot at that location. If that clot blocks blood flow through a coronary artery supplying the heart, the result can be a heart attack. This process of plaque formation can take many years or even decades to develop. So how might diet influence this process? Recent research suggests that in certain individuals, extremely low carbohydrate diets may significantly alter cholesterol metabolism. When carbohydrate intake drops to very low levels, the body relies much more heavily on fat as a source of fuel. To transport these fats through the bloodstream, the liver packages fatty acids into lipoprotein particles. These particles travel through the blood and deliver energy to tissues that require fuel. For many people, this process occurs without major complications. However, researchers have observed that some individuals respond very differently to extreme carbohydrate restriction. In certain cases, people following strict low-carbohydrate diets experience dramatic increases in LDL cholesterol. Sometimes these increases are surprisingly large. In rare situations, LDL levels may double or even triple after switching to an extremely low-carbohydrate diet. What makes this observation even more surprising is that these increases are not always seen in individuals with poor metabolic health. In fact, some of the most dramatic LDL increases have been observed in individuals who appear otherwise healthy. They may be lean, physically active, and free of many common metabolic risk factors. Scientists sometimes refer to this pattern as the lean mass hyperresponder phenomenon. In these individuals, switching to a very low carbohydrate diet appears to trigger a large increase in circulating LDL particles. At the same time, other markers such as triglycerides and HDL cholesterol may remain within healthy ranges. This unusual metabolic pattern has created an ongoing scientific debate. Some researchers believe that if inflammation remains low and metabolic markers remain healthy, the increased LDL levels might not represent the same risk seen in traditional cardiovascular disease. Others argue that decades of research consistently link elevated LDL levels with a higher risk of atherosclerosis. At this stage, scientists are still investigating this question. Human metabolism is incredibly diverse. A diet that improves health markers for one individual may produce unexpected effects in another. This is why many experts now emphasize the importance of personalized nutrition rather than universal dietary rules. Instead of focusing on extreme dietary strategies, long-term cardiovascular health may depend more on balance. Reducing highly processed foods, maintaining a healthy body weight, engaging in regular physical activity, and supporting stable metabolic function all play important roles in protecting the heart. Carbohydrates themselves are not inherently harmful, just as dietary fats are not inherently dangerous. What matters most is how different nutrients interact with each individual's metabolism. As research continues, scientists are learning more about how genetics, lifestyle, and metabolic flexibility influence dietary responses. And this growing understanding may eventually explain why the same diet can produce dramatically different outcomes in different people. For now, the most reliable strategy for protecting long-term cardiovascular health may not be extreme restriction, but metabolic balance. Because the human body was never designed to follow rigid nutritional rules, it was designed to adapt. And understanding that adaptability may be the key to making better decisions about what we eat in the long run. At the same time, scientists are continuing to explore how different dietary patterns influence long-term cardiovascular health. Nutrition research is complicated because the human body responds to food through a wide network of metabolic pathways. Two people can follow the same diet and experience very different outcomes. Genetics, hormone balance, physical activity, sleep quality, and gut microbiome composition can all influence how the body processes nutrients. Because of these differences, the future of nutrition science may move toward more personalized dietary strategies. Instead of applying one universal diet to everyone, researchers are beginning to explore how individual biology can guide better nutritional decisions. Understanding these differences could help explain why certain people thrive on low-carbohydrate diets, while others experience unexpected metabolic changes. And as scientists continue studying these patterns, our understanding of nutrition will likely become more precise. The goal is not simply to label foods as good or bad, but to understand how the complex systems of the human body respond to the foods we eat every day. Because in biology, context often matters more than simple rules.